Before your dog came into your life, there was something missing. You might not have known what it was, but the moment they arrived, the moment those eyes found yours for the first time, something in you recognized them, like you'd been waiting, like they'd been sent. This video is about why. Welcome to Canine Mind. Subscribe now. What we're about to explore might change how you see your dog forever. There is a question that sounds simple, but carries more weight than most people realize. Why did a dog end up in your life? Of all the ways your story could have gone, of all the directions your path could have turned, this specific animal with this specific face found you, or you found them, and something shifted. For some people, the answer feels obvious. They needed company. They wanted a pet. They walked into a shelter and a dog looked at them in a particular way, and that was that. But there are others, and you may be one of them, who feel that the explanation doesn't quite reach far enough. That whatever brought this animal into their life was operating at a level that the word coincidence doesn't come close to touching. Across every civilization that has ever existed, dogs have occupied a place that no other animal has held, not as tools, not as livestock, not merely as companions, but as something closer to the sacred, as beings placed at the intersection of the human world and whatever lies beyond it. In ancient Egypt, the god Anubis, the guide of souls through death into what comes after, wore the head of a jackal. He was not depicted as fearsome, but as faithful, patient, and precise. He weighed hearts, he escorted the dead, and beside him always were dogs, not incidentally, purposefully, because in that ancient understanding the dog was the creature most equipped to stand at the threshold between what we see and what we don't. They were guardians of the passage, witnesses to the journey of the soul. In Native American traditions, the dog was understood as a spirit guide and protector, a being who bridged the seen and unseen worlds and who chose to align with the human path. The relationship between a person and their dog was not accidental or incidental. It was a covenant, a sacred agreement between two beings whose paths were meant to cross and to intertwine. The dog who walked with you was not simply your companion. They were your ally in a much larger story. In Celtic mythology, dogs appeared at the edges of the otherworld as healers and guardians, beings associated with healing springs and sacred places, with the kind of loyal courage that made them fit to stand between the living and whatever waited on the other side. In Christianity, the faithful dog appears as a symbol of watchfulness, devotion, and the love that does not waver regardless of what is deserved. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, whose monastic order bred the great mountain dogs that saved travelers lost in the Alps, understood the dog's ministry of rescue as something not entirely separate from the divine. All of these traditions, across centuries and continents that never knew each other, arrived at a version of the same conclusion. The dog is not an accident. The dog is a messenger, a gift, a guardian wrapped in fur and set beside the human soul for reasons that go beyond what we can easily articulate or fully understand. Have you ever noticed that dogs is God spelled backward? Some people dismiss this as a coincidence of the English language and nothing more. But consider what it might mean if it were meant, if there were embedded in the very word for this creature. A signature pointing at what they carry, what they model, what they demonstrate every day in ways we mostly take for granted. Dogs love unconditionally, not approximately unconditionally, not most of the time, not when it's convenient, unconditionally, without exception, without negotiation. You can be your worst self with a dog, impatient, distracted, short-tempered, struggling, broken, and they do not flinch. They do not recalibrate their love based on your performance. They simply love you. And when you look at what every major spiritual tradition identifies as the highest expression of the divine, it is this: unconditional love. The love that does not compute what is deserved, the love that simply is. Dogs forgive instantly, not slowly, not partially, not after an appropriate period of distance, instantly. You can scold them and they return to you wagging. You can forget to walk them and they greet your return with joy. You can go through years of grief and difficulty and inconsistency, and a good dog will be there on the other side of all of it, tail moving, eyes soft, ready to begin again as if nothing happened. Every spiritual tradition that addresses forgiveness describes it as the hardest thing for a human being to achieve. Dogs do it automatically, without effort, without keeping score. Dogs are faithful. The story of Hachiko, the Akita who waited at Shibuya Station in Tokyo every single day for 9 years after his owner died, because that was when the train was supposed to arrive, is not just a story about loyalty. It is a demonstration of something that operates at a level beyond habit or training. Nobody told Hachiko to wait. Nobody told him his owner wasn't coming back. He waited because waiting was the shape that the story of Hachiko, the Akita who waited at Shibuya Station in Tokyo every single day for 9 years after his owner died, because that was when the train was supposed to arrive, is not just a story about loyalty. It is a demonstration of something that operates at a level beyond habit or training. Nobody told Hachiko to wait. Nobody told him his owner wasn't coming back. He waited because waiting was the shape that love took for him, and love did not stop because death had intervened. That faithfulness, patient and unyielding across years of absence, mirrors something that humans have always associated with the divine. The love that does not give up, the presence that does not abandon. Dogs live entirely in the present moment. This is something spiritual teachers spend lifetimes teaching their students to achieve. And your dog does it automatically with every breath they take. They do not carry yesterday into today. They do not project today's difficulties into tomorrow. They exist completely, fully, without reservation in the moment that is actually happening. When they are playing, they are entirely playing. When they are resting, they are entirely resting. When they are with you, they are entirely with you. No part of them is elsewhere. This is not a limitation of their intelligence. It is a form of wisdom that most humans will never fully reach, and it is something they model for us every day if we're willing to watch. Science has confirmed what people who love dogs have always known. Dogs heal us. Petting a dog lowers cortisol, the hormone of stress and fear. It raises oxytocin, the hormone of bonding, trust, and love. It lowers blood pressure. It slows heart rate. It reduces the physiological markers of anxiety in measurable, reproducible ways. Therapy dogs have transformed hospital wards, calmed children in courtrooms who were too frightened to speak, walked beside veterans whose minds returned again and again to places that never let them rest. They have sat with grieving parents in the worst hours of their lives and provided a comfort that no human words could reach. But here is what science cannot fully measure. The moment when you are sitting alone at 2 in the morning, carrying something too heavy and too private to put into words, and your dog gets up from wherever they were sleeping and comes to lie beside you, not because you called them, not because there's food, because they felt something shift in you, because their attention is calibrated to your emotional state in a way that is almost incomprehensibly precise, and they decided that their place in that moment was next to you. That movement, that quiet act of choosing you in the dark, is not fully accounted for by neuroscience. It belongs to something else. Many spiritual traditions teach about the concept of soul contracts. The idea that before we arrive in our physical lives, certain meetings are arranged. Certain connections are set into motion that will shape who we become, what we learn, what we carry forward. Most people apply this idea to other humans, but there are teachers and traditions that extend it further. That the specific dog who found you, who was at that shelter on that day, who was born to that litter in that year, who fit into your life in the particular way they did, was not a coincidence. That something in the arrangement of your story required this companion, this teacher, this healer, and that the dog, in some layer of their being that we don't have language for, knew you before you arrived. Think about what your dog has taught you. For some people, a dog taught them what it means to be needed, what it means to have a living creature depend entirely on your care and consistency. That responsibility changed them, made them more present, more reliable, more attentive to something other than themselves. For others, a dog taught them patience, the patience required by an animal who cannot be rushed, who has their own rhythm, who needs to be met where they are. For others still, a dog was the first relationship in their adult lives in which they felt loved without performance, without earning it, without managing how they were perceived. The dog just loved them, and in experiencing that, something opened. These are not small lessons. They are the lessons that spiritual traditions have been trying to teach for thousands of years through scripture and practice and meditation and prayer. And somehow this animal, this creature that has walked beside the human race since before recorded history, arrives already carrying them, already prepared to demonstrate them, already living them every day in the way they move through the world with you. And then there is the loss. Losing a dog is unlike most of the losses we experience in life, and people who haven't experienced it often don't understand why. They say things like, "It was just a dog." And the person who lost them has no way to explain why that phrase lands the way it does, because the dog wasn't just a dog. The dog was the specific, irreplaceable being who knew you through a particular span of years, who was present for things that no other creature witnessed, who sat with you through illness and heartbreak, and the ordinary Tuesdays that, in retrospect, were actually extraordinary because of who was in the room. The silence after a dog dies is a specific kind of silence. It has a shape. You feel it in the house. Many traditions teach that love doesn't end at the boundary of physical life, that what was built between two souls, the recognition, the trust, the particular frequency of connection, doesn't dissolve when the body does. There is a beautiful and very old idea found in different forms across many cultures and many centuries that the dog who loved you continues to wait just as faithfully as they always waited, just as patiently, just as certain of your return. That on whatever shore lies beyond this one, a familiar face will be there, tail moving, ready to walk with you again. Whether or not you hold that belief in a literal sense, there is something true in it. The love a dog gives you does not leave when they do. It stays in you, in the way you see the world a little differently, because they were in it, in the habits they built in you, the walks that made you notice the morning, the routine that gave shape to your days, the presence that taught you what it felt like to be unconditionally loved. They imprint on your soul, and that imprint does not fade. So why did God, or the universe, or whatever word sits best with you, put a dog in your life? Maybe it was to protect you in the way dogs have always protected from the things that come in the dark and the things that live inside us that we don't always name. Maybe it was to heal you in the specific and personal way that only this animal knows how to do, arriving precisely when needed, knowing exactly where to be, asking nothing in return. Maybe it was to teach you something about love that no human relationship could have delivered in quite the same form. Something about what it looks like when love is given freely, without condition, without memory of offense, without the calculation of what is deserved. Maybe it was to remind you, when you needed it most, that you are worth loving, that you matter to someone, that any universe this large and this complicated, there is a creature who is right now waiting for you to come home. Whatever the reason, this much is true. The dog beside you is not an accident of circumstance. They are a gift of extraordinary precision placed in your specific life at your specific moment, by something that understood, perhaps better than you did at the time, exactly what you needed. They are not just pets. They have never been just pets. They are companions at the deepest level, teachers in the oldest sense, healers in the most literal way, tiny, faithful, furry expressions of the kind of love that this world is made of at its foundation, and they came to you on purpose. If your dog has ever touched your soul in a way you couldn't fully explain, leave it in the comments, because this community is made of people who understand. And sometimes the most important thing is knowing that someone else felt it too. Subscribe to Canine Money and go be with your dog.